Eva Guzman, thank you so much. You were a Supreme Court Justice, and now you want to run for Texas Attorney General. Why, and what are your top priorities?
I'm running for Texas Attorney General because Texas deserves the best Attorney General. Texas is hiring a lawyer. And if you're hiring a lawyer, you want someone that brings the credentials, meaning the experience and the character. You want someone that's a warrior, and you want someone that will fight for Texans, for our conservative values. I left a job I loved on the Texas Supreme Court to step up for the state that I love. And my priorities, on day one, I restore integrity. On day two, I restore the staff that left after they went to the FBI to talk about Warren Kenneth Paxton and his abuse of office. And on day three, I'm ready to sue the Biden administration to fight the federal government's overreach.
So let me ask you, this is a crowded field in the Republican primary now. Besides yourself, there's George P. Bush, there's Louis Gohmert, and of course the incumbent who you mentioned. And I'm wondering, what separates you? Why should primary voters go with you over the other candidates?
What separates me from the other candidates is experience and integrity. Texans want an attorney general who represents the highest levels of experience. No other candidate in this race has served on the state's highest court, the Texas Supreme Court. As a Texas Supreme Court judge, I have decided the most complex constitutional questions in the state and sometimes the country. And frankly, that's the type of experience that's going to keep Texas at the forefront of every fight against the federal government's overreach.
Well, what impact does that have on the legal battles that you say you will have with the Biden Justice Department?
Well, we know George P. Bush hasn't had a law license for over 10 years. He just renewed it in October of 2020. We know Ken Paxton has lost all credibility. He's under a state securities indictment, and he's facing a serious FBI investigation and a potential indictment on a completely separate issue. And we know Louis Gohmert has been up in D.C. Texans need a Texan who's been in the Texas courtrooms fighting for Texas. And that's what I've done as a judge for 22 years on the trial court, on the Court of Appeals in Houston, and on the Supreme Court. And what that means is that with my experience, I can bring and attract the right lawyers to work in the Attorney General's office again. It means I know how to unpack complex law questions. It means I can take an issue and decide which issue we should take all the way to the United States Supreme Court. I'm the only one that knows how judges think. I've been a judge for 22 years. And why is that important? Judges evaluate legal arguments. Judges evaluate credibility. I bring both: experience, credibility, integrity.
You talked about credibility. What is your biggest concern if Ken Paxton were to be renominated by Republican voters and then, go against a Democrat in the fall?
As a Texan, as a strong conservative, if Ken Paxton is nominated as our nominee in the fall, he will be the weakest link and is a real liability to conservatives. He has one indictment. He won by under 1 percentage point the last time he ran, with one indictment. If this indictment from the Department of Justice comes after the primary, Ken Paxton's the nominee, and we have a twice indicted nominee. Some say he can't even buy a gun right now because he has a felony indictment. I need to check that out, but I've read that.
So are you saying that if he is, because George P. Bush expressed concern that he'll be indicted by the Biden Justice Department after his nomination, is that the same concern that you have?
Whether he's indicted before the primary or after the primary, he should not, cannot be this state's nominee. I will fight the same conservative battles. I will lead teams of attorney generals from red states to fight for secure borders, for election integrity, to fight against vaccine mandates, to stand up for life. And I'm the one that can do that. I have the experience, the character. Ken Paxton, the reason he's facing another FBI investigation, his choices. Choices have consequences. He chose to fire the attorneys. We have a whistleblower lawsuit in Texas. We're paying a lawyer $500 an hour to represent Ken Paxton. His defense to the whistleblower lawsuit, I'm not a public official. Can you imagine the fallacy of that argument? He's also distracted. We know that when Ken Paxton took up a challenge to Obamacare to the United States Supreme Court, he lost. He lost on the issue of standing. And Justice Thomas, one of the most conservative justices in this country, said, this is not the court resurrecting the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. This is the court deciding the issues the plaintiffs chose to bring. They filed that lawsuit in a way that failed to give them the only opportunity we'll probably have in this decade to challenge the Affordable Care Act.
So let me ask you about the Supreme Court. As you know, on Friday, they came out with a ruling leaving the Texas Heartbeat Act in place, but allowing the suits to continue. What did you make of that? Did the court get it right?
The court, we don't know what the court's ultimately going to do, but what we do know is there are dozens and dozens of children that will have an opportunity to live their life, because for right now, abortions in the state of Texas are not taking place at the rate that they were. The legal question, the enforcement mechanism, that's still before the court. But what the court did do is allow some of the challenges to be heard.
Were you satisfied with that, at least so far, what they've decided?
I'm going to leave that to the court. It's tough to say they got it right because they are still in the court system, but what I am satisfied with is that right now we're still protecting life in the state of Texas, life that begins at conception.
I wanted to ask you about the political maps because, as you know, the Justice Department has filed suit against the state of Texas, saying that the state and Republicans who drew the maps didn't really consider the growth in the minority populations, African Americans, but particularly Latinos. How do you respond to that?
The maps represent the will of the legislature elected by the people. And the other thing I'll say, just being a Latina who grew up in the inner city, who worked in a factory as a young woman, and who is now sitting before you as a candidate for Attorney General, former Texas Supreme Court judge, the Latino population is not monolithic. We vote Republican, we vote the other way. At the end of the day, though, the maps, as drawn, represent the will of the legislature, and the courts will decide if they've gone too far.
The Justice Department also filed suit against the state as it relates to the election integrity bill that became law. And Democrats have said, plain and simple, this is voter suppression. What's your response to that?
The Democrats want to nationalize elections. They want to, instead of making it easy to vote and difficult to cheat, they want to nationalize the process. Every vote matters, every vote counts, and I'm in favor of processes that ensure elections are secure. And that means states decide, not the national government, not Joe Biden.
You mentioned the mandates before, COVID-19 vaccine mandates. What is your position on them? Because there have been, the Biden administration has right now suspended its rules because of the court rulings on the vaccine mandate, at least nationally. But then there's also been, Governor Abbott has had an executive order for banning a vaccine mandate. And some people are not happy about that either, saying, private citizens should have that choice one way or the other. Businesses should have that choice one way or the other. Where are you on all this?
I oppose vaccine mandates. Americans are about freedom, They don't want the government telling them what to inject into their bodies. I would fight against vaccine mandates as Attorney General, and private businesses. They don't get to discriminate on the basis of gender or race. It's unconstitutional. In the same vein, they shouldn't get to discriminate against private citizens by forcing these unconstitutional vaccines on them.
So you support Governor Abbott's executive order to ban the vaccine mandate?
I support anything that gives Texans their freedom and allows them to choose whether or not they want a vaccine.
As you know, on the border, it's always the top issue. One poll just came out, said it remains the top issue among Texans. And the Biden administration has now had to restore the old Trump policy, which is people will have to wait in Mexico. Where are you on that?
They should wait in Mexico, and where I am on that is we need to secure the border. There are real human costs to this lawlessness at the border. Slave trade, drugs, this fentanyl that's coming in. There's a real cost to lawlessness at the border. I would work hand in hand with our state leadership to do everything in my power as Attorney General to secure the border. It's a priority.
I want to also ask you about bail reform. There was a law that was passed in this session, or in one of the special sessions, and I'm wondering, do you think lawmakers got it right as far as bail reform? Because there's a lot of discussion on this topic. So where are you on?
I'm from Harris County originally. In Harris County, the murder rate is way up. In Harris County, we've got felons, 7-time felons out on bond. A few months ago, a police officer was murdered having lunch at a Galleria area restaurant. Before that, a 7-time felon lined up a family, executed them, children included. We need judges who will hold criminals accountable. Bail reform, if it means letting out felons so that they can recommit crimes, so that they can terrorize entire cities, that's not bail reform, that's lawlessness.
We discussed before, you had mentioned how you believe that when it came to the Obamacare ruling, you thought that the Attorney General's office got it wrong as far as their legal argument. How would you rate them, that office under Ken Paxton, as far as his ability to successfully file suit against the Biden administration so far?
He's distracted. I am not saying Ken Paxton hasn't ever done anything well. I'm saying right now, with a state securities indictment, a pending felony indictment, according to Louis Gohmert, some sort of extramarital relationship, that's a lot on his plate, and it's distracting him. He filed a suit in the Supreme Court of Texas, a mandamus, a few months ago, and it was dismissed. The court cited to a procedural rule. Ken Paxton got it wrong there too. He failed to follow the rules. It's a pattern with him. The staff at the Attorney General's office, 7 of his top hand-chosen, loyal, conservative, brilliant family men went to the FBI, and they're gone. They're not there anymore. A top priority for me would be to restore the staff. There's a real cost to that. There's a lawsuit against Google. The opioid litigation was handled in-house at the Attorney General's office. That resulted in over $1 billion to Texas, Texas's share, in-house. The Google litigation in December of 2020, about a couple of months after the attorneys left or were fired by Ken in violation of the law, he went to the legislature and said, my office can't handle this lawsuit. I need an appropriation so that I can hire outside counsel. The Google litigation started in the Attorney General's office, and it was moved out when he lost the staff. There's a real cost to Texans. Texans need an experienced Attorney General, credibility, integrity, and someone that'll fight for conservative values and causes.
Eva Guzman, thank you so much. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.